Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back. We're East Coast Adventures, the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike.
And we got a very special guest today, Bob Adams. For many of you that don't know who Bob is, he's a pretty talented ultra runner around Knoxville and Chattanooga area. Just scrolling through his ultra sign up here, we're looking at 67 races and about 43 trophies to go with it. And along those trophies are several course records, one that Bob doesn't know that I also tried to break and didn't, but we'll get to that later. But Bob, if you don't care, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
I'm Bob Adams. I'm 43 years old now, so well into the master's years. Got into running when I was, say, 8 years old, officially doing, track and field. My dad was a track official around Knoxville and some of the bigger races, so he got me into back then it was AAU Junior Olympics. Marty Sonnenfeld, probably heard that name around Knoxville. He was the coach back then, and so I was doing track and field, mostly like I guess it was 1,500 and 3,000 meter running, and made it to the nationals a few times, and from there, just did middle school cross country. My dad was actually the middle school cross country coach at Farragut, and he got me to start running on the middle school team in the fourth grade, which was the sixth through the eighth grade. So he just kind of snuck me in there to help out the team, and so kind of did that through that. Ran in high school and took a little bit of a break during college and went to the Army for 5 years after college. And then I kind of started picking back up marathon running once I went back to Knoxville, and sprinkled in some ultra kind of stuff, for some of the years there. And then since I've moved to Chattanooga in 2013, I was still doing some road marathon things, but mostly have switched over to ultra training over the past 8 or 9 years or so.
So in fourth grade, you're running middle school cross country?
Yes.
Well, I know you're a pretty tall guy, Bob, but back then were you like the shortest guy on the course, or were you the tallest guy on the course?
You've probably heard some things, I'm guessing, because I was pretty much the shortest person in my grade, let alone shortest runner. So I didn't hit a growth spurt until like in between my sophomore and junior year in high school. So I'd say as a fourth grader, I probably looked pretty out of place going up against some eighth graders out there. But I think I held my own. I can't really remember how I did in the fourth grade, but I'm sure I was in the top 50 somewhere. But by the time I was in the sixth through eighth grade, I was finishing up there near the front. So it was.
I have no doubt. Yeah. I would be so upset running as an eighth grader against Bob in fourth grade and look over and see this little guy beside me, and I'd be like, oh,
well, yeah. Like, what am I doing wrong here? How is he beating me?
So how did you get into ultra running? Like what flipped that switch?
Well, so when I was in the Army for 5 years, and when I went overseas, I was just in Kuwait, so it wasn't I wasn't having to do much for fighting, but I was bored, so I would just get on the treadmill because it was so hot. I'd get on the treadmill there and just run for hours, and kind of got addicted to it. And it took me a while to get weaned off of the treadmill when I came back to the States. It was kind of funny, but I forced myself. I was like 25% on outside, 75% for a week, and then I got myself to where I never wanted to be on the treadmill again. But anyways, when I got back to the States, I was on an Army 10-miler team we had some really fast runners. So I was like, man, I'm getting in pretty good shape, not just for the 10-miler. I was able to, we did a half marathon. I was setting, my PRs and all the distances. I was like, I might as well jump in a marathon. So I started getting in, a few marathons, and getting in the mid 230s and things like that. And I, I don't know, around town, there wasn't much for, ultra sign up wasn't that big back then. And there was just this 50K in Austin, Texas. So while I was still in the Army, I jumped in my first 50K. So it was kind of like I used a race to kind of prepare me for the next race. So I kind of did the Army 10 miler, and then we did a half marathon in December. And then it was like I did the Austin Marathon sometime like, February. And then I did this prickly pear 50K in March or April. So it was just kind of like I was kind of using that as a way to go about training for it. And I knew I wanted to go a little bit farther, but I just didn't want to go in too far. I still enjoyed marathon running and whatnot. And then the next year, I think like 2008 or 2009, once I was back in Knoxville, I was like, I'm going to take it another step. I was still, doing a lot of training that was just marathon training, but I did a 50K. Let's see, I did the Frosty 50K in like January. Then I did the Iron Horse 100K in like March or something, or later February. And then I jumped in and did a scar crossing because Bobby Holcomb convinced me to go across the 2009. I've never run farther than I guess that 100K that I did a month earlier. And I was the only one to finish. There's like 6 people that started, like Jeff Woody and Will Jorgensen, the Cobb brothers, John and his brother, and Bobby. And Bobby only ran the first 50K with me. I think he never had intentions of finishing it. And so I ended up finishing it. Even though when I was going across Rocky Top, it was lightning and torrential downpours, and my headlamp was not the best, so I couldn't see anymore, and it got dark. So I'm like, having to feel my way around as we were doing the switchbacks to get back down to Fontana. So I lost a lot of time just on not being prepared. But that comes with, that's my first time doing something like that, where I start in the dark and end in the dark, and not having the gear or the prep really to go through it. So nowadays I'm not going to make those kind of rookie mistakes, so to speak.
Well, rookie mistake or not, I mean, you started off winning almost every race that you ran. I mean, you're talking about the prickly pear 50K. Was that like your first 50K?
Yes. So yeah, I kind of made it through the marathon, and then hit a wall, and some guy passed me. Well, I hit a wall probably a little bit before that, and the guy passed me at the marathon. I think I was still going like 7-something minute pace, and this guy passed me. I was like, "Whoa, you doing the marathon?" He's like, "Yeah," and ended up losing to that guy. But that, once again, I didn't have the experience, so it was just one of those things but that just set the tone. But afterwards, like, we got these big, like, I'll say double 32 ounce, like this 32-ounce glass mug, and they had, some brewery or somebody was sponsoring at the end. So I challenged the guy to a chug off. So I at least did that. So, anyways, that was always a good spirits. There wasn't any time that I finished something to where I was so delirious and things like that it wasn't enjoyable. So I think it's just always having, a good, enjoyable experience to where, I want to go back and do it again.
What do you think it is, when you say the experience? Like, what do you think the biggest thing is that helped you get past that point?
Well, I mean, I guess the training. I mean, like I said, I mostly trained and did, really fast marathons, but I felt like the speed that I had, if I was going to go out and do a 50K, I'm more so running, obviously what the course is going to allow you to go, but I'm going at a pretty good effort, and I'm usually running by myself. So, I mean, the experience is just me versus, the elements and, my own mind at times, because there's not really anybody else out there that I have to worry about. So, and back then, in ultra marathons, nowadays there's a lot more people and a lot more competition. People are getting into it at younger ages. I didn't even really know about it at the age of, younger age, even mid-20s, and not to skip forward too far, but this last Mountain Mist 50K that I just did, there was a 19-year-old that's now running for UTC, but this was his 5th Mountain Mist, and he's 19 right now. So, wow. I'm just putting that in perspective. When I was 19, I did my first marathon just because in college I didn't run. You know, I was at UT. I did not run for UT, but somebody knew that I ran cross country in high school, so they're like, "Hey, can you train me for a marathon?" I was like, "Oh, that means I've only really ever run. Maybe the first I've ever run is a 10K, like the Expo 10K back in the day." But I was like, "Sure, I'll help you. It'll give me an excuse to go out and not party as much." So did a few of those in college, but other than that, like I think it's just getting into the routine and of training and having a good race to look forward to. And when you run well, and the experience, like you asked, is a lot better. And you find races that you like, and you'll probably see in my list that I frequent some races multiple times just because I had a good experience. So, and I liked it, and I liked the race director, I liked the setup, the post race situation, the people that were there. That even though I'd always stay around and see a lot of people finish and hang out afterwards. So um, there's certain races that I really enjoy doing, especially nowadays.
So what is your fastest marathon time?
It's a 2:34 flat, and it was at Boston in 2009 when the wind was coming in my face the entire way. So my fastest two marathons are actually Boston, which is not a PR course.
No,
No.
that's insane.
Never tried to go get a fast PR on an actual fast course. I always would just train for Boston and just try to do it there. So, and a couple years later, I was actually in better shape, and I was on pace to do like a 2:31 or 2:32, and my hamstring cramped up. But in that race, the wind was to our backs, but the sun was out the entire time. And similar to like Ethan, I have an Ethan Coffee. I have issues when it's direct sun, and when Boston it starts so late in the morning. The sun is above you the entire race, and so the day that I did really really well in 2009, it was cloudy. So even though the wind was in my face, it was cloudy. So the sun wasn't draining and finally getting my hamstrings usually ball up and that kind of thing. So I think I was in technically my PR is a 2:34 flat, but I'm pretty sure I was at least probably around 2:31, 2:32 potential at like where I was training and whatnot.
How many?
Dude, that's incredible, Bob.
How many Boston marathons have you done?
4.
4.
I did 4. So that I've done 25 road marathons and I guess 40 or so ultras. But
what has been your favorite road marathon?
I mean, I'd say Boston still is, just because I had a buddy that lived up there, and so the whole experience from getting to go out to Italian restaurants that he recommended, and he knew of the people there, to going to watch a Red Sox game every time I went in town. Not that I'm a Red Sox fan, but it's just a awesome place to go. Went to a Celtics game once, because when Boston's going on, the Celtics and the Bruins are usually in the playoffs, and the Red Sox are just kicking it off for the season. So it's a great time to be up there if you're a sports fan. But let alone all the runners that you see from around that came up from Knoxville with you and whatnot.
It sounds like
my brother. I wanted to mention him. My brother and I, when I moved back to Knoxville in 2009, he had picked up running, and we both had joined that team I was telling you about, and got a lot of good running miles with him for about 4 years before I moved down to Chattanooga. So he came up to Boston all those years with me. So I got to have my brother around, and he was always a couple minutes slower. But that very last Boston that we did, he had never beaten me in a road marathon, and I went in there a little hobbled with a calf injury, but I wasn't going to not race it. And I was beating him through about 23 miles, and I was starting to hobble my way in. So I knew he was probably only like a minute behind me, and I wasn't going to let him just pass me. So I saw somebody over drinking a beer off to the side. So I went over there and said, "Hey, do you have another beer? Because I'm just going to spectate and watch my brother go by and cheer him on." At least I hold up a full beer to let him know that I was just why he beat me is because I stopped, but stopped taking some beer. But no, it was that was my slowest Boston time. But I haven't been back since, and that was like 2015, I think. But it still is still my favorite road marathon for sure.
Well, that's an impressive time too,
Oh,
especially
definitely.
in Boston. That's awesome. Did you ever, you and Ethan ever just throw down at a marathon together?
I mean, I've ran plenty of marathons that Ethan did, but I wouldn't call it throwing down. Maybe I was with him for the first 10 seconds, but he was a level than if I'm running 2:30s by myself in about third or fourth place, say at like the Knoxville Marathon, he's a good finishing a good 12 minutes in front of me, so or 10 minutes or so. I never really got to see him, but there was a few times that he kind of dropped out that ended up getting his number, I guess you could say.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So what all teams did you run for? As far, you said you ran for the military, correct?
Well, so yeah, I went to Farragut middle school and high school, so I ran for both of those. In college, I kind of took a break. I just joined a fraternity, and the same one my brother was in. And I mean, I won't go into the sob story, but in high school, when I was a junior, when I grew those inches I was telling about, I was really short, and then I grew like 10 inches over the summer. Well, I got a lot faster, but my hamstrings hadn't caught up to my height yet, so I strained my hamstring, and I was out my whole junior year. And that was my first major injury. Didn't really know what to do to recover from it, and that's when colleges are usually looking at you. So I guess I could have walked on somewhere or kind of done that, but I don't know. I had been running since I was 8, so I kind of took a little break. But then, yeah, I joined the Army, and I ran on a few. I found out about the Army 10-miler, helped form the team down at Fort Stewart, and then at Fort Hood, there was a couple other guys that were really fast, that were faster than me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get on this team. And we were the fastest team in the Army for stateside Army stations by far. I think I finished 4th at the Army 10-miler. It was one of the hot years where somebody had passed away at the Army 10-miler and the Chicago Marathon that same year. I think it was like 2006 or 7, and but I think did like a 58 low or something like that with those extreme temps. And I was 4th on the team, so that was a pretty good team. After I came back to Knoxville, I got picked up in the team wars. It was Runner's Market versus EBS, and that was employee benefit specialist. This guy John Smith, and I think he was just there to give Runner's Market some competition. So he would like recruit these guys. I'll say like C-level Kenyans out of like not even really rubbing the Runner's Market team away. You'd get these guys in there, and Eric Bell, who went to Farragut and ran at UT, he was kind of running from them, but kind of dropped off when I came into town. But he goes, Bob, you got to run for EBS. Don't let Runner's Market recruit you. So I ended up running for EBS. I recruited my brother, and we beat him one year, Runner's Market, and then by then Ethan had come to town, and he had kind of joined Runner's Market, and EBS kind of fizzled away. So I convinced Ethan to form a Troopers Bar team, which Trooper was his dog, and he had this, I'll say his basement, he turned into a bar. He just built a bar down there, so we just called this bar. People would always be like, Troopers Bar, where is that? And we're just like, it's just too hard to explain. And we just always known as a bar team. But we do some 6-person ultra relays at Blue Ridge Relay as Troopers Bar, and a few other type of relays as that team, and did the team competition in Knoxville against Runner's Market and others. Before that one finally fizzled away, and I moved to Chattanooga. And down here for like about a year, we had this Patagonia like team, Chattanooga, and it had some pretty good ultra runners on it, but that kind of didn't really stick for very long. And but other than that, that's pretty much what I've done team wise.
That's pretty awesome. I love that story about Troopers Bar.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't realize you were the main conspiracist behind pushing that into forming.
I also recruited others. So Ethan had a couple other names you might remember: Michael Mintz and Max Paquette. He lives in Memphis now. I think Mintz has been in Canada for a number of years, but we also convinced them to run for Troopers, so they broke away from Runner's Market as well. So it was just kind of like, it was really rubbing Runner's Market the wrong way that we were kind of purging some of the best runners and then running against them. But it was just one of those things that, you know, you can't just have one team running the show. You wanted to have some healthy. So as much as it was, you know, for everything, it was really just to get some competition in it, and it was fun that way. So
Yeah, I mean, friendly competition. That's awesome.
Well, now they got what, like 5 or 6 teams now. Zen Evo, and then the long run, and then East Coast Adventures is even listed up there now. So
that's awesome. I'm glad it's kind of. I kind of just watch from. I don't really keep up too much with the Knoxville scene, but I'll get up there every once in a while and for a race, a road race or something. But typically, I'll do the one that's closer to me, Whitestone. I've gone up to the Whitestone 30K, and I'll typically still do the road one, even though I know they have a 30K trail race there. But every single time I've done Whitestone, I think the last time I did it, I was 40, so 3 years ago. I've never not done that course under a 6 minute per mile pace. I've always done it. So I might have to get in shape and go back there and try to keep that going. But I'm starting to probably run out of years of being able to, because that's a tough course. It's not the easiest of courses hill wise. So I don't know if I want to break that streak or just go, hey, I've done 4 of them under a 6 minute per mile pace and just leave it at that. But
just switch over.
What's that?
Just switch over to the trail side, so you ain't got to ruin the streak.
That's true. I won't. I actually did look into doing it, and that's coming up in a few weeks. So I may jump.
Yeah, we normally run the aid station at the Whitestone towards the end. East Coast Adventures does. We've done it the last few years.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it fell this year the same time that we've all signed up for the Chattanooga Erlanger Marathon. So we won't be there this year, but we think we got someone that's going to fill in for us and just take the East Coast Adventures trailer and load up and still put the aid station on, because we usually have a party back there.
Well, I've done the Chattanooga Marathon several times. I don't know if the course has changed. It's been a few years, but it's a fun. I mean, it's fun. I mean, for a local race, I guess. But
it'll be my very first marathon, so I went completely opposite of you.
Yeah.
It will be my first and my last, probably at the same time.
That's what he says now until he feels how fast he actually gets to run, and it's pretty fun.
It's true. So you do finish a lot quicker than
It's not true. You know, it's not 5 hours or 6 hours. It's like 3 hours or 3.5 hours, and then you're done. You get to hang out and watch people.
Still not convincing. So going through like your ultra sign up results right now, and doesn't always show your longest, you know, like your first big race, but you did some 50K, some 25Ks, and I mean, you did really well at them. So like Prickly Pear, you were second place overall, Norris Dam Hard 25K, second overall, Big South Fork fourth. That Frosty 50 you were talking about, you were first. Iron Horse 100K, you were first. Was that 100K your longest distance at that point?
Yeah, by far. I mean, I think the 50K was my longest before that.
How did that go? So how did you've done marathons and 50Ks, and at this point now you double it. Now you win this race, so obviously something went right. But how was it? Like, was there any down points? Was there any things you had to struggle and work through?
So this one's down in Florida, so it's you know, it's pretty flat, just on some rail trail, and I figured I was not going to go out. Obviously, you know, I was doing marathons where I, you know, can go sub 6 minute per mile pace. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out like it's a training run and I was actually doing 7 minute miles. So I went through the marathon in like 3 hours flat or something like that. I'm like, that's probably a little aggressive still looking back on it. But at the time I was like, man, I'm comfortable. This is not hard. I'm not really straining like the speeds that I was probably, or the effort that I was putting in on some of those 50Ks that I had already done before. And so even through, I think it was about 33 or 34 miles, it was starting to become difficult to continue on at that same pace. So it started getting to a point where, and I had my dad kind of out there crewing, and there was a lot of different spots that, you know, he could peek in and see where I was at. And I was actually for the first time trying like solid foods out. You know, so I thought like, you know, spaghetti, you know, the things that I was thinking of that this would be good ideas. So I was like eating like, you know, spaghetti with spaghetti sauce and maybe some, I don't know, maybe some peanut butter and jelly. I can't remember, but I don't think it was going to matter at that point. And I was starting to walk jogging in probably from like 38, maybe 40 miles. And so I think I just had such a big lead that, and there just probably wasn't too much, for people still doing ultras at that, year type deal. So, I think through 50s, there's this one guy that was there that, he knew about cutoff times to make certain teams. He was saying through that 50K, he's like, wow, you're well on pace to making the 100K United States team. And then like through 50, he goes, you're actually still on pace. And so like, even though I'd fallen off a little bit, and I don't think I was walk jogging it at that point, even through 50, but I think for about the last 10 miles, there was another, they sent you back out for the last 10. So it was like 25 was the same course, 25 was the exact same course, and then you had to go out for another 10. That last 10 was a struggle, but you kind of learn along the way, and I'm glad that I got that 100K in, and I took a few years before I did another one, but well, I did the Scar Crossing and whatnot, but other than that, it was a learning experience for sure.
So at like mile 40, were the legs just shutting down? Was that the issue? Just lactic acid, or was it just?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, a little bit of that. There wasn't much for like injuries. It was just more tired, and so the pace just went from the 7s to probably just in the 8s for a while, and then gradually got to the 9s, and then probably the last 10 was, even with the walk jog, I probably tried to do run for a minute, walk for a minute, and I've utilized that in in even more recent longer races, that kind of strategy of I'm not just going to walk for a good distance. I'll always try to, I'll count my steps that I'm walking, and then I'll try to jog more steps than I walked, and I've done that several times, just as something to like keep my brain moving in a positive way. So I think I did something. I even tried to utilize that kind of strategy back then.
Well, I mean, your time is impressive. I mean, especially for your first 100K, you did it in 7 hours, 53 minutes, even though, you crashed a little bit there towards the end. But I mean, running 7-minute miles, that's a pretty stout 100K to start out with on your first one. So I mean, that's truly impressive. But, then you go on and you do the JFK 50 miler.
Ooh, that was a bad story though.
Oh, really? Let's hear it. Well, that's the one we like.
Ended up beating me by 45 minutes. And like, let's put it this way. Like I was definitely, this was way before he beat me in a marathon. So he still claimed to fame to me as like, I've still got the 50 mile, faster time than you do. And like, he claims like a downhill mile, he's faster than me. But like for PRs, how brothers are, we're gonna, but like, so what happened, we were running together for like the first 15 miles, and then I started having stomach issues, and I'm like, I got to take a pit stop off in the woods. And then it turned into 2 minutes later. I never caught back up to him. I was like, oh, I'll catch back up. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, no, that wasn't enough. So I'm back over in the woods, and that hit me like 3 times. And so then once I got down to the flat part, I tried to pick up the pace to catch back up to him, and it was not going to fly. So I got to about 30 miles in, and then I was, even on all the flat stuff, I was in a bad spot. So I was already having to walk, jog that thing in. So the fact that he beat me by like 45 minutes, that JFK 50 mile was not, I can't say that of all my ultras, that was probably one of my least favorite experiences, was that one. So, but.
Was there anything you did different with nutrition, or was it just a bad day for your stomach?
It was just a bad day for my stomach. So then once I was trying to maybe play catch up, I think I had already lost a lot, electrolyte wise, and I probably was not running with any kind of salt tablets or any kind of, I probably had some gels, things like that. So I was already, when I kind of hit the wall around 28 or 32 miles, once you're starting to feel that way, it's already way too late. So I was really bad on the nutrition on that one, and I think it was just because I had stomach issues so early on in that one. But I still finished. I
was going to say, you still finished it.
Dropped from something. Some people get disappointed in races and they drop because they don't want that finish to be on the record. But I'm going to muscle through things. So that's not how I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's a hard race to finish like that. I mean, when your stomach's that upset and you're like mile 30, you can't think about eating or drinking. And when you do, it's not going very well. So you basically just run that on an empty stomach with no nutrition. It's terrible.
Well, no, I stopped at the aid station. I would just stop there for 5 minutes and just talk and eat and keep eating. And that's one thing I can do. I can eat solid foods all day long in ultras now. I mean, because the pace, even just the latest 50-miler, the Natchez Trace one I did in November, like they were cooking quesadillas and bacon, and I'm going probably 8:30s or something like that. It was a pretty runnable course. I mean, it's a little rolling, but they say they've got quesadillas and bacon and things like that. I'm like, okay, I grab a whole quesadilla, grab a handful of bacon, and I keep going. Now the bacon was a little too chewy, so I chewed on that for a couple minutes and then ended up probably spitting it out because it wasn't your crispy bacon. But he probably was cooking it, ready for all the other runners coming about 10 minutes after me or 20 minutes later. But got there too quickly. The bacon wasn't done yet. But
yeah, stop and wait.
And I prefer solid foods than just my earlier years in ultras. I was just going off of gels and things like that, and that's just what I was used to for marathon running.
Mm-hmm.
But I prefer to eat I'll say healthier regular foods more so because I'm going at what I would perceive slower pace than for effort wise. My body can handle eating, and it's not roughing up my stomach or anything by doing that.
Yeah, you can't beat a quesadilla and bacon.
Oh no,
for an ultra.
Oh no, it's great.
That and a grilled cheese
and an avocado.
No avocados.
So then you did Norris Damn Hard. You did the trail race, the 25K, and then it looks like there's just like a whole year where you don't have anything on ultra signups. You probably did some other stuff, but then you do the Norris Damn Hard Trail 50, and you won it. And then you go and do Georgia Jewel 50-miler, first place. Now, the Georgia Jewel, have you done it since then? Or is that the only time you've ever ran it?
The only time I've ever run it, and it was it was the old course, and it was the old race director. I mean, it started and it just went out 25 miles and it came back 25 miles. Now I think at some point they maybe bust you out there and you just ran back.
Yeah.
Just different. But I have not done it since it's the new course or anything.
Well, I mean, you already checked that one off the box, so you just roll on, right? And now you've done it. Now we're moving into a stage race. So you did the Chattanooga Mountain Stage Race. Tell us a little bit about this, because I don't think any of us have ever done this event, and looks like you did really well.
It always looks fun, but it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday type deal.
So I've done it 3 times, but back then it was when I first did it. What was that, like 2013, somewhere around then?
Yeah, nailed it. 2013.
I had just moved down to Chattanooga, and it's always had really strong competition. And so the year I did it, of course, had strong competition. I thought I was in really, really good shape. But I had David Riddle, who's won Mountain Mist probably like 10 times, and he was in it. And there's another guy, Daniel Mueller, that was beating me on all the stages as well. But it's basically all 3 of what we call the mountains down in Chattanooga. You got Lookout Mountain, Raccoon Mountain, and Signal Mountain. And they've kind of switched it up now where they've added the Cumberland Trail instead of doing Raccoon. So they've made it actually even more difficult. And I have not done it since they've done that. But it started on Raccoon, and that's the easiest one. And, you're just blazing on that thing. I think I did it in like an hour and 50 minutes, I think it was about 18 miles or so, maybe a little bit less on your watch. So, and then you went to a harder stage on Lookout Mountain, which had a lot more, vertical gain and moss on it, a little bit more technical. And then it always ended on Signal Mountain, which I don't know if you guys have ran down there. It's a lot technical. I'm not the best technical runner. I would rather be able to utilize my speed. And when I have to just be hopping around over rocks and all that kind of stuff, I just turn into an average runner. And people just that are really good at it, they train on it, they just blow me away. Some of the fast technical runners down here just kill me on the technical section. So when I got to that section, I'd like to say I was running really strong until about the last 8 miles or so of that section, and the other two days. By the time you got to that third day, and it was the toughest section, yeah, I was pretty spent. So it's 3 days in a row, and ended up third, I think, because there was another guy that was beating me, but he dropped on that signal day because he had an ankle injury. So I lucked my way into third, I think, that year.
I
And
would say that's pretty impressive, third overall.
yeah, no, but it was, I've done it several other times since, and ended up finally winning it. And I didn't do it, haven't done it since then. But there's certain races I like to do a lot, and I've done the Lookout 50 miler several times, and I've the Upchuck 50K that's local. I've done that 30 times or so, and obviously Mountain Mist is now like the one I like to do. You do it 10 times. That's down in Huntsville. You do it 10 times, you get a jacket. So I've done it 5 times now, so I'm halfway there. And my goal is to get a top 10 finish there all 10 times that I've done it. And obviously I've started a little later on Mountain Mist than that 19-year-old that's already done it 5 or 6 times. But I'm 43 now, so if I do it the next 5 years, I'm going to be getting close to 50 probably on my 10th time. And if I'm able to do it the next 5 years, I've just kind of gotten lucky that I've had that weekend off. But to get top 10 there is still the next 5 runners that are usually behind me. I'm usually finishing about 4th or 5th there. I've never finished in the top 3. That's why I like it. It's got really good competition.
Mm-hmm.
Finishing the top 10, I can't fall off too much farther. Maybe another 15 minutes, but people start rolling in after that. But my goal is to do that. So I'm going to try to keep my fitness up to be able to accomplish that at least. But
I've heard it's an awesome race. I've never ran it, but I want to. It's on my list.
Well, hey, if you do it, I mean, it's once again you'll have to get like maybe a Knoxville team to come down, because we always do this. I'll just say it's not a part of the race. There's no team competition, but we always have Chattanooga, Nashville, Huntsville. I'm one of like the captains on the Chattanooga team, so we're now winning all the time. It's probably going to be pretty hard for any other city to beat us now. But I mean, now that we have that 19-year-old now he somehow gets to run at UTC. They don't have track season, so
I feel like you went out and recruited these people.
But no, we got those teams, but we haven't really seen enough people from Knoxville to warrant trying to ask, hey, Knoxville, you need to form a team. So
yeah,
always had Huntsville, Birmingham, Atlanta, Nashville, and Chattanooga. But you guys need to form a Knoxville or an Athens team or something. Get some people down there.
I was say I think we can do that.
Yeah,
find some runners.
Call it David's Bar.
Right.
So we got now we got a big race coming up that we're getting to here, and I've heard some stories on this one, and there's some questions that will pop up.
There might
later
be a question later about it.
And you might even talk about it.
I already know what you're going to talk about.
So I hear. So the Pistol 100 miler. This is your first 100, right?
It was actually going great. If you want me to just go ahead and talk about it, over with. So I was going to go for the 100-mile record, and not only get the record, but break the Tennessee record and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to throw that under the bus, but Will Jorgensen said he goes, right before the race is starting, this is like race day of, he goes, all your watches are going to be wrong. He added a mile to every lap. He said, but he was only calling it 10 miles. But your watches are going to say 11, which everybody's watch said 11 every lap. But it was only counting it as it was 10 miles. Every lap. And it's 10 laps, right? So as each lap's going on, it's just burning further and further into my brain of how mad I am that I'm not going to be getting the record. Like I was the first one through the 100K. And I finally got bit by a dog. I got bit by a dog somewhere out there on the 7th lap. That I said, that's it. And I was running with, I think, Tony Owens and Kathy Smith at the time. And I go, you know what? That's it. I said, this is BS. And we had been trying to convince Will to drop this lap, this extra lap, because it was going to be a whole extra lap that we'd have to do to get to the 100 miles. It would be 110 by our watch. But guess what? So I finally just said, screw it. I'm done. And I quit. I'd never quit races, but I was just like, I'm done. And guess what? Will or Tony or somebody calls me and they go, and I had already left the course, so I was already It was already done. The fact that I've got to finish was because I convinced Will after the fact, because I came back the next morning. I'd had 14 hours of sleep, by the way, and we're drinking, but they called me and Tony had convinced him to drop the lap. But after I had already stopped, it took him longer than 66 miles for him to decide to drop the lap. I think he decided to drop the lap. If I would have kept going one more lap, he would have dropped it, and I would have probably been had a new, I would have probably had a second wind or a fifth wind at that time and kicked it in for 15 hours. So basically, I went to my buddy, had probably like 6 beers, drank, and I woke up next to my wife on the air match, and I go, you know what? That course doesn't close for a long time. I'm going back out there and finishing what I started. And so I went back out there with 14 hours of not being on the course, just started without telling Will. And I ran into PK the next morning. I was blazing because I had all that rest. I was doing probably like 7:30s, 8-minute pace. And I was all these people that are still left from the course are all these walkers and stuff. And I'm just blazing by them. They're like, who is this guy and what does he do? So then I finish, and Will's just like, well, you left the course. And I was just like, well, I mean, this was my first 100-miler, and you did drop that lap, but you didn't. Anyways, it was something I never really wanted to go back to that race, and I don't have anything against Will. I like Will. It was just something that occurred in that one race. So you'll see my time on there. You'll see my finish place, but just put the asterisk in there that I slept for 14 hours.
Well, it's funny. So I was dropping bibs off today to Tony because he's timing the Gone Loco this weekend, and he said, when you see Bob, remind him that I beat him in the first 100 or in his first 100.
A lot of people beat me in that, right? Because but at the time I didn't really think about. I don't really care about what Ultra Sign-Up says, but it does. It says I finished like 67. So I bet a lot of people look at that and they're like, "What did he do? Did he blow up? What happened to him?" But it's something that I never really talk about too much. And I said I don't have any bad blood. It was just something the race director said was going to happen, and it was not what happened the many years before. And it happened to be the one year I was doing it. And I didn't mention that my wife was pregnant with our first child, and she was out there still. At the time when I finally, like at 11 at night, I was just, or whatever time it was, maybe it was like 7 at night. And I was like, when I decided to quit, I was like, I'm looking at her, and she had our child like, a month later. So, I mean, she was pretty pregnant at the time. I was like, you know what, let's just get out of here. So, but it was just one of those that, I kind of wish I would have stuck around, after the fact. But if now, especially knowing that he dropped a lap, but if he hadn't dropped a lap and I would have gone 110 miles, I don't know. I would have still been kind of disappointed about it. But when I dropped after 100K. So if I had signed up for the 100K, I would have won that thing by a good 30. But it doesn't work like that, I guess. You can't just say, I'm dropping to the 100K in the middle of it. So.
Well, Tony did say that it was Kathy that convinced Will to drop the lap. So it had everything to do with Tony. It was Kathy.
Will, and he wouldn't budge. And then Kathy finally convinced him. Oh.
Yeah, because Tony was laughing. He's like, I'm pretty sure Bob went home and slept and drank and come back and still finished in time.
Oh, yeah. It was like 28 hours with 14 hours of sleep. Seriously. Like, I did it. I mean, obviously, if I hadn't had that sleep, if you would have just combined the time, I probably wouldn't have finished in 14 hours and 30 minutes. But it would have probably been somewhere around 15 hours.
Yeah. Tony Owens, if you're listening, Bob admits you beat him.
He did. He didn't sleep.
Well, and I totally get where you're coming from, though. Like, you've built this up to go and try to break the state record, and it has to be a certified course.
Yep.
Yes.
And at that point, you're so disheartened, I would imagine that's all you're thinking about. And I mean, that you're just not there at that point.
I mean, it really just came down to like who certified it. Because I'm like, if all of our watches are going to be off, I was like, how is it off? This, I mean, the Maryville Greenway. It's not like it's not like super curvy. I mean, a lot of it's just straight. I'm like, how is it going to be? Everybody's GPS watch is going to have an extra mile on. So I was just everybody was confused. So when you're talking about the confusion, and as you get further along, 100K in, you're getting a little more delirious, and the confusion starts turning into madness, and you're just like, this is ridiculous. And so you start just getting mad. And so I usually don't get mad in races, so I probably needed to stop in the first place. It wasn't enjoyable for me anymore. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's when you're on a greenway, you're not losing GPS signals, so
No.
it's not missing miles or gaining miles. So I totally get it.
So
But
I wanted to stick to more trail ultras because it's not really about, if the distance is exactly right, what they say called a 50K, if it ends up being 36 miles or it ends up being
yeah,
34 or
right.
20, or 30 miles, it's just like you're
They're
just
3 miles.
put the course and stuff like that. So I kind of like those a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and if I'm looking at this right, so that was in like 2016. Is that right?
It'd be 2014. That was unless that was my second child.
So yeah, 2016 must have been your second child.
Second child. So I had a 2-year-old, and the second child was very close to being born.
So, but what I'm looking at here is that was 2016. You waited 3 more years to do another.
Well, so several big events occurred. Not only did I have my second child, but then my firstborn had. And I'm not going to go into this too far. He had childhood cancer at the age of 2, and we were up in Cincinnati for like 3 weeks. Went to chemotherapy for a good 8 months down in Chattanooga, but I wasn't really thinking about running long races or going away from my family during that time. So that whole year was kind of a wash. I probably did a few local things, but it was a really busy time around our house. And then even a couple years after that, we had our third child, who's now 3. So it's just, there's been some years where I just don't race that much. It just doesn't work out. But I still get in the miles. I still get in the routine, and that's just as enjoyable to me as getting in, mileage and whether I'm racing or not. But yeah, there's been some breaks in there, but it usually went around a significant event that occurred.
Well, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
And I love the fact though that you continue to train and run, because I mean that shows your discipline, and that probably do it for mental health some too. Like
Yes.
just to
I had to get outside because when you're in the hospital, next to your 2-year-old that can't really tell you why he's crying and that kind of thing. So I had to get out. So whenever my wife I had no sleep. When she would come replace me, I'd be like, I'm going to go out and just run 6 to 8 miles and just go clear my brain and then go home and sleep or something like that. I was like, I got to get in some miles, because if not, then, then you start forming other bad habits. And it's just, I've always found running's always been, especially over the past, say 15 years, especially, has really just been what I enjoy doing. So if I'm not doing it, if I'm injured, I'm like really not in a good spot. So I'll do a lot of treadmill hiking or a little bit on like a mountain bike or something like that, just on roads on a mountain bike. I don't have a road bike. I don't really want to get into that. It's just more of a, I still want to exercise a certain number of, hours a week type thing, even if I'm injured, but just, I feel like I need it to keep up with what I'm used to.
Yeah, I mean, you need it to be able to, help yourself work through whatever you're going through. Like, I mean, a lot of people do it for, fitness and physique, but when you're a runner, and especially an ultra runner or someone that's doing a lot of distance, like you develop this passion for it and this love. And at the same time, it also becomes your place to where you like work through your thoughts and, prayers, everything else. And, it becomes like who you are. So when you do get hurt or something like that happens and that's taken away from you, it's hard to deal with sometimes.
It really does. But once again, I always find a way to still exercise in a certain way, whether it's, weight training or any type of other thing to help. Usually I get injured. It's probably because I've neglected some sort of weight training. And I had like an adductor injury, and I went and saw a PT, and they're like, well, because your abductors are weak. So like I started, I got a BOSU ball, and I always find to do stability exercises. Ever since then, I've never really had adductor issues again. So it's just like, you figure out things that you're kind of getting weak in certain areas by doing the same thing all over and over again. So you got to, stay strong and kind of just keep still learning, even though I've been running for so long. But you never stop learning that. And I go through certain phases in my running life as well. My time in Knoxville I probably couldn't count many times I wasn't running with at least 5 or 6 people. And we were
Mhm.
always running pretty quick, and I always had a good running group. There was a running group that was meeting almost every day of the week up to Knoxville. And this is in the late 2000s, early, and we had early 2010s, and we always had great groups of runners, like Stuart Ellington, Andy Baxa, back when he used to run, Ethan, a few others. They were always meeting up at all these these training runs and always getting it in. Whereas now, after COVID, now I've been working remotely at my house, and I've got 3 kids that are now school age, and I'm, my wife's schedule is, less certain. She's usually at work before we have to take the kids to school, so I'm usually taking them to school, but I get to come back home. So I'm usually running solo sometime in between when I drop the kids off to school and have to go either pick them up, or if I don't have to pick them up, I'm still trying to run probably in midday if it's winter, or pick a good time when the weather's probably pristine, or if a little bit earlier in the morning or later in the evening if it's summertime. But I kind of get to pick my own time, and I'm running solo all the time now. I rarely find time to go meet up. There's every blue moon I'll go meet up with some Chattanooga runners on the weekend, but they're always wanting to run on Signal or Lookout, and that's a good 30-40 minute drive, and they want to meet at 5 or 6 in the morning. I'm like, I have to get up at 4 in the morning. So I'm like, you know what? And some of those guys, I always be like, who's running? Because if there's maybe a few people that are a little bit slower, I'm like, you know what? I can sleep in later, go out and run 20-something miles and do it in a couple hours, 3 hours or so, and get it done and get back to my family. And, I got some more sleep, get it done. Whereas I could have woke up at 4, done less mileage, and not get back to my family, but even later than what I did. So I justify not running with people sometimes, just because it's just convenient to get it done and get it over with and get back home to my family. So, and that's kind of like what I do with racing too, is I do a lot more regional stuff now because I can go like Mountain Mist. I leave it. I wake up at 4:30, get down there, race it, come back home, and I'm back home by 4 in the afternoon, and I've still got the evening to hang out with my family. So it's things I kind of pick and choose my races that way, just so I get to not have my wife have to babysit for three children for that long. They're all under the age of 10. So once they get a little bit older and independent, I might be able to get away with going a little bit farther and for a little bit longer. And, but as of right now, my life, so it's all about the stage that you're in.
I'm saying you're pretty blessed in this area. There's all kinds of local races.
Yeah.
So
I know.
You don't have to go far. We just keep adding them everywhere, which is awesome. I mean, between Knoxville and Chattanooga, there's just so many options at this point. Do you have a weekly target that you're trying to hit with your runs, or do you just change it up each week?
Well, I mean, this past year was the most mileage that I've ever done in a year. I got close to, I guess Strava said I did 38:55. So that's about 300 miles over my previous yearly best. So I think it just really came down to I didn't get injured this year, but I don't really keep too much of it. I'll say I don't think far out. I don't really pre-plan schedules. I just kind of go off of feel, and I have kind of a weekly target I want to hit. So if I'm averaging 10 miles a day and I've done some easier stuff, I try to get in a fast workout. And if I feel good the next day after that fast workout, like a tempo run or something like that, and I get to the weekend and I can get in a good 20 plus miler and I feel really good in that, I kind of just keep up that kind of same routine. If I'm throwing in a race, just leading up to the race, I don't really do much of a taper except for that week leading up to the race. If it's a 50K, then I'll probably still run about 35 miles the 5 days before it, and just so I can get in around 60, 70 miles on the race week with the race in it. So yeah, I try to keep it around 70 to 80 miles a week recently, but it's not always been like that. Sometimes it's 60 to 70 miles a week. You can't just go into it and off of if you're used to doing 1,500 miles a year, you can't just do 3,800 because you want to. So I've kind of had the miles in, built up over the years, and I kind of looked back on it, and I've done 3,400 before, 3,500 before, usually around 3,000, 3,100 maybe on average. I've just had a good year this past year, and of just training really, and just avoided injuries and got a little stronger, and so this is how I've been able to get in the miles. But I've kind of kept it up this year. I'm a little bit above. I'm probably averaging about 78, even with some of the lower weeks I've had recently. But that's just to kind of recover after the two bigger events I did. But so I'm kind of smart about it to get the average, and then I'll finally boost it back up here in a week or so.
Keeping that mountain mist training, keeping them goals in line.
Yeah.
Well, you have, I mean, and even though you waited a few years, you absolutely killed Pinhoti 100. I mean, you ran it in 18 hours something and finished first place. So was that kind of like a redemption 100 miler for you after the previous one?
I mean, as you can see, I don't try to do 100 milers that much. That
No.
one was actually the complete opposite. I had an amazing experience there. I went out a lot slower. When I say slower, I ended up running with the guy that was leading the race for the first 13 miles. And I'm like, you know what? We're going a little too hasty than I probably want to go. And so I let him go ahead, and he got up on me probably like 15 minutes. And then probably around like the 52 aid station or something like that. I had a crew there, or one guy that was, helping crew. And we were going to change out my shoes because there's like this section that's just some dirt roads, some rolling dirt roads. So I put on some faster trail shoes, and I was going to click off some faster miles and try to catch up to the guy. Well, here he comes just walking right by me. From there, I'm like, whoa, man. Because everybody at all the aid stations, I don't ask how far ahead he is. They just tell me how far ahead he is. Right? He's like 15 minutes ahead of you. Here he goes walking by me. I'm like, holy crap. Let's get my shoes tied. Let's go. So I got my gear all on, and I just start taking off and doing like 7:15s over the next 6 miles. I passed him within the first mile. After I just had like this big jolt of energy, and I took off. And when I passed him, like I looked back another mile later, and he was nowhere in sight behind me. And like you can see pretty far behind you on these dirt roads that you have for about 6 or 7 miles. And once I got back onto the single track, I mean, I didn't even look back. I had another guy that was going to run the last 50K with me. So that was all during the night, and had a pacer to go. And the other guy that was behind me, that I had the fear that he was close behind me, right? Like he's going to get a second wind and catch up to me. He ended up dropping at 87 anyways, but I didn't know that. So I'm like running scared, so to speak.
Yeah.
And finished pretty well, I guess. But in most of those miles, if not almost, other than those first 12 miles, were all solo. And it's just, you just kind of, but it was still a good experience. I used that technique of when I was going up Mount Chia of, running more than walking. So like I still had to walk a little bit going up, and that's probably around mile 40. But I would always walk about like, 60 steps or something, and then I would run like 70. I just kind of kept that, and it got me up the mountain pretty quickly. I was like, man, that's it. Thought that mountain was going to be a little bit, tougher, but anyways, that was a lot better of an experience. Not that Pistol couldn't have been a good experience. There was just some that mentally put me in a bad spot.
Yeah, well, understandable given the circumstances. At least you got your redemption here.
But you're probably asking, like, why if you had such a good experience at Pinhoti, why wouldn't you want to do more? And it's just, I think at that point, I was just like, I was happy with it, and I think I tried to go in the lottery for Western States or something like that. You have like a less than 1% chance of getting in. And so, but other than that,
you got a better chance of winning the real lottery at this point.
But after that, I think I just started once again. I had a couple kids and already at that point, and just sticking to family and doing more regional stuff, and just kind of enjoyed it.
Well, it looks like you come back and got your redemption at Cumberland Plateau stage race on another stage race, because I remember this one. This was the first time I met you because me and Mike ran the day 3 race. And I think it was you and Luke were running together in this race, if I remember correctly. But looks like you had really strong runnings all 3 days. Finished first place in that. That's a John Harden race. That was a fun race that unfortunately, just kind of went away.
Yeah, no, and you'll see that there's certain races you'll see they're kind of grouped together. I kind of like John Harden races, and I've done the Black Toe. He convinced me to go out there when there was for that 12-hour one, and because nobody had ever gone farther than 50 miles on it, and he was just pissed off, and he got like myself, Show Gray, Olaf Wasterneck from Nashville, and a few others to go after it. When I was in the lead, and I was probably about 15 minutes or 13 minutes up on Show or so, and I knew that I had to go another lap because I was just like, because if you complete a lap under the 12 hours and you start another lap, you have longer than the 12 hours to finish it. So I was just like, crap, he's going to finish before the 12-hour mark too, and he would keep going. I know he would. So I just went for another lap, and by the time I came back, Show did not go for that next lap because he knew I went, and I was already up on him probably 15 minutes. So, but he was already hanging out by the fire, and I asked him, I was like, you would have gone another lap, right? And he's like, yes, I would have. So I was like, dang it. So I ran, walked, jogged in the dark my last lap on that one to get the 62 something miles. And more recently, I'm glad I didn't end up doing it, but this past weekend he had the Black Toe event again. He was claiming that he was going to offer like $1,000 for who could break 100 miles in the 24-hour. And I told him at that 50 mile or the Natchez Trace 50 mile that I did in November that I would think about it. But I already knew, I had already kind of had the Mad Ultra one on my brain because Ethan was trying to convince me to do it because he was going to be there. And that was 3 weeks before Black Toe. And then I was already signed up for Mountain Mist, which was a week before Black Toe. And I was like, man, that's just pretty aggressive training plan. I know some people that do ultras every weekend, but I'm not really that type of person. And so I never signed up. I was going to see how Mountain Mist went. And I had a little twinge underneath, I think the insertion point from my hamstring meets below the knee. And it's kind of going away now. But if I would have tried to do that 24-hour, I probably would have been in a bad spot. So, and of course, this was a good year where the weather was nice. Usually it's a mess up there, but maybe next year I'll take them up on it because I don't think anybody got the 100 miles this year.
Yeah, I would like to go back next year. So I went last year to break the 100 miles, and I was 50 miles in right before the 12-hour mark. And that's the race that I was running when I was in Rhabdo. So I ended up having to leave that race and go to the emergency room. So I want to go back next year and go for it. But what's funny is you were talking about the Black Toe 12-hour, and that's the race that I was actually trying to break your course record, the 62 miles. And I think I was 40-something miles in, and that's the year Luke was trying to break the 100 miles for the 24-hour. And me and Luke ran a couple laps together, but that was very early on in my ultra career, and I was living on oatmeal pies, and that didn't make it past about 8 hours. Yeah. And it just went south from there. I think I finished with like 50 miles or something like that. But I have the goal now. I want to do like you. I want to go back to Black Toe and try to get 100 miles in 24 hours. Because, I mean, that's a tough course, and John Harden puts on a great race.
He does. Well, I also wanted to mention one of his other ones, the Music City Ultra. I had forgot to look up what the course record was again that day of the race. And I went there, and he's like, it's this time. He told me the time of it. And I went out there on that course, and I was under the course record. I knew what time I needed to beat. And I even, one of the last aid stations, they had Fireball there, and I stopped to take a shot of Fireball and whatnot. And I ended up finishing, and he's like, he tells that, he's like, all right, Bob's got the course record, Music City Ultra, yada, yada. And then later on that night, he calls me because Cody Goodwin, who had the had the record there, he goes, no, I still have it by 8 seconds at ultra time.
Oh, no.
I wanted to a long time, and I was like, I could have easily ran a minute faster or anything. I was like, I was sad. Another one of those things that I never went back there to go break it again, but I had a great race at that one. And I was like, ended up not getting the course record by 8 seconds at one of his races. But someone have just as much something kind of just rubs you the wrong way. Even though I love John Harden races and I still go to all his other ones, I don't want to go back to that one. There's just something for it. I got it, and I should have, and I thought I had it. I was even told at the reward ceremony that I had it, and I did not have it.
Yeah,
that's my fault for not looking at, trusting somebody saying a time, and I didn't look at ultra glaringly right there. So, anyways,
well, I had a technicality last year in the black toe. So even though I quit after 12, right at 12 hours, I still finished like third place for mileage. So John texts me. He's like, "Hey man, you still finished third, just FYI." And he was asking me something. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's awesome." He's like, "Yeah, so give me your address." I was like, "Okay." And then the next day he texts me. He's like, "Man, I just was reminded that I have a rule that if you don't start a lap in the second half of the 12 hours, you're DNF'd." I'm like, "Oh." I was like, "Okay." So I went from third to DNF, but it's, I mean, at the end of the day, like, what you've done, so it doesn't really matter. But I was like, "Oh, got hit with a technicality there."
And there's also a few stories within the stories that you can't really see when you look at the results. Kind of like my pistol results. People will probably be like, "The heck? He's usually first or second or top 5 or something. How did he finish like 67th in a 100-mile?" It's like, well, there's obviously a story on that one. It's just different things, but.
Yeah, if you saw the air mattress with a case of beer on the side of the course, that was Bob.
Yeah, I have a problem when I'm I'm running by myself and I get to an aid station and they have some alcohol there, and I end up like, well, you know what? I'm gonna have some pickles. I'm gonna have I see that big liter of Fireball there. I'd like to have a shot of Fireball too. So they're like, "Wow, are you sure?" Yeah, for sure. Or even at Mountain Mist, this last one at the last aid station, there was no one behind me. I was already going to finish 4th or whatever I was in, and or 5th, and so there was no way I was going to catch anyone before me. But they were telling me as you're coming up to the aid station, you're climbing up this big hill, and they're telling me, "Hey, we got beer, we got this." I was like, okay. So I get up there and I'm like, "All right, let's fill up my water bottle," even though I have a mile and a half of flat to go. Filled up my water bottle, chugged a few of their little half cups of beer, and then went on my way and finished strong. But I don't know. It's just something it's just part of the fun, I guess, when I'm out there.
I love it when they have like shots of Fireball and beer and everything else at the courses, because I mean, there's sometimes where I'm like, "It's a bad day, give me one of those."
For most people, it was like that. I'm usually not having a bad day, but it's just after I take it, that Fireball shot. I remember at the Music City Ultra, I was like, "Oh, that was a bad decision." Like, it starts coming back up a little bit, and takes a few gulps of water to kind of wash it down, so to speak. But it's still I'm not going to regret doing that, even though looking back, it cost me probably the course record by hanging out
seconds.
Well, I remember going, "Hey, I got to get out of here, guys. I've been here for about a minute. I got to go. Got a course record to get or something." And then ended up not even getting it. So,
should have drank that beer faster. Well, and you also have, I skipped over a race here that I was going to mention, but this is Doug's race, and it's a pretty technical race, and you won it. So I know you said you didn't run really well in technical areas, but Caney Fork, I mean, that's a pretty technical course, isn't it?
Well, once again, there's always a story on these, right? This is the year that the river was like too high, so he just did 2 loops up top, so we didn't have to go down. So I've got like the course record by probably a couple hours, but I didn't have to do like the technical stuff.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, I'll say it how it is. I'm not going to claim that I ran that thing so well or something like that. It was just, I had an easier course than any other year. So
there's some years you picked the good course years.
Yeah. I'll love the draw, right? So it almost makes up for the pistol, right? Almost.
That's right. So this year, jumping into this year real quick, you've done, so obviously you finished November. You already talked about it, the Natchez Trail Run, the 50 miler, which you won that one. You then do, I guess this is your very first backyard ultra?
No, I've done several before.
Have
But
you? Okay. Which ones have you
He
done?
did Johnston Woods.
I think it's on Ultrasign. It's called Cannonball down in Chattanooga. And the Cannonball, though, they force you out. He forces you out by like dropping a minute after midnight. So it's like
Oh,
probably like 70 minutes on, but he drops a minute every hour. And so it was getting down to, we were already at like, this is like 3 a.m. So I think we were at 57, 56 minutes to finish. And at that point, I was just trying to, and kind of like what I did at the Mad Ultra, I just want to like beat certain people. I knew that Kyle's really strong, but I'll go back to Cannonball. I had beat some road guys that were doing their first kind of ultra type thing. I was like, I'm not losing to these guys. But when it got where I'm going up against a really seasoned, guy that's done probably like, 2,500 milers and stuff like that, I'm like, man, this guy's legit. He could keep going, even though I knew they were dropping a minute. My quads were toast on that one because it's on Stringer's Ridge down in Chattanooga, and it's just like a more of a mountain biking course, and it's just got tons of little ups and downs. Like when I say little ups and downs, I'm talking about uh, 30 to 40 feet of gain and then 30 to 40 feet of loss. So not like little bumps. Like it's just constantly either going up or down. And my quads were toast. And I finally just said, good luck, finish your last lap in 55 minutes and went on my way. But same thing kind of I did another one at Johnston Woods, but a guy was trying to convince me to quit by offering me a bunch of Mexican dinners in Cleveland or something like that, and I was like, nah, not going to happen. We were only like 60 miles in at that point, and so that one was a little bit more of a smaller, low key one. But then when I got to the Mad Ultra, I was really wanting to go. I wanted Ethan to go farther, and once he dropped, I was like, well, I'm going to at least beat the two guys that you were trying to beat. And once I got down to Kyle, he had a plan for me. Like we were talking, and he's just like, what's your plan? If you want to go far, yada yada. I mean, I was still running well, but I think at that point I was just like, I don't know if I want to run another 12 hours with just one other person at that point. And I know that comes with experience, and some people are backyard people. It's all about you need one other person to make it happen. But he was saying that once it was down to me and him, and it got to the night like thing, he was going to have me move into a tent that's got like good fire, going and that kind of thing. Not a tent, something that's got a lot of good heat, and we were going to work together to make it go far and far. And what we talked about, but I said, look, man, I've got 3 kids and a wife that have already been out here supporting me for 28 hours. They went home and slept and came back, but I'm like, look, man, I know that you can go for another like 150 miles, and we both have mountain mist going. No, he could have easily. Because like he was starting at that point running with me, and we did a lap at like 8-minute pace or something, and I was like, okay, whatever we run here on my last lap, you've got to beat it. So I finish it, and we finish it in like 36, 37 minutes on a lap, and then he goes out there the next lap and runs it in 29 minutes, and he's a big guy. He's not a little guy, But and we get on faster courses. Like we went in Mountain Mist. We both ran Mountain Mist 2 weeks later, and I beat him by like 20 something minutes. And that's not to say anything. It's just more of you get more to the shorter, faster courses where I'm actually getting to use my speed. That's the difference. These backyard ultras. I mean, he's just a strong guy. I mean, he can muscle his way through another 150 miles farther than I wanted to go. So and luckily that next night it was snowing anyways, and that would have probably turned into a bad decision, but maybe someday. The backyard ultras, like I said, with a family of 3, there's not many weekends with my wife's occupation that I'm going to have the opportunity to take 3, 4, 5 days off to go really do something crazy. So I kind of was lucky. I had Martin Luther King Day off anyways, and she did too. So it kind of worked out for me to do it, and I'm happy with what I did, even though I guess technically I dropped. Everybody drops except for one person. But
well, when I saw you and Ethan, y'all looked like you were having plenty of fun. So
let's put it this way: I was disappointed when he dropped because that deflated me. I'm like, dang it! There's 2 guys. One of the guys was from Knoxville, and I think he was trying. If anything, wanted to at least outlast that person. He was having some electrolyte issues, and I think a day later he was kind of mad that because I tried to convince him. I was like, no, we'll take another one of your he called it some kind of drip drop or some kind of a drink.
Yeah, drip drop. Yep.
Yeah, that's his hydration of choice.
Yep.
I know, but I was like, why didn't you just? I tried to say take that because he didn't drop it on me that he wasn't going to do another lap until like 2 minutes before it was going to start. And I'm like, I didn't have enough time to get. Don't do this. Don't do this.
Ethan had a strategy.
He's like, don't tell him and not go.
Well, because the other two guys that were about to drop, they were the past like 3 laps before that. They were going like 56 minutes. They were already on their, I want to say they were close to being done. And Ethan was still doing 40-minute laps with me. 40 like.
Oh.
But he wasn't like he could have walked, a whole lap and gotten his hydration in control. But he just, when he dropped, it kind of, took a little bit of my, what the reason why I was out there was kind of just run along with him. And after that, I was like, now it's just down to me and another person. I was like, I don't know. Now, because running slow is not necessarily what I enjoy doing. And I feel like I was just pretty much running by myself again for another 24 hours. That didn't really sound exciting to me, even though I think I could have probably kept going.
Well, and in those backyards, though, you have to really have a reason and a want to do that. Because, like, to your point, you got 3 kids and a wife. Last thing you want to do is run for 4 days. If you didn't have an end goal, is that really what you wanted to do?
Well, and the person that won gets an entry into another race, a silver level race, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do that race. I'm probably going to I don't even know if you could transfer entries. I'm not going to be able to do it. So I would rather Kyle go and do it because that's what he's doing. That's what he's training for is all these backyard ultras. Like, I'm not doing that. I only did it because like my buddy was doing it. So, it's not really, even though I've done a few of them, it's not really what I'm, out there training for when I'm at home and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Kyle's definitely talented at the backyards. He's doing good. I know he's doing Capital, and then I'll see him at the Bob's in August because I'm doing it. So we'll.
That's the one that he got the entry into, I think, right?
Bob's.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit now, Bob. We'll talk because you've already kind of covered most of your races, but one question for you, and then we'll really get into some questions here in a minute with Matt. He keeps the questions list.
Got him.
One of the questions for me, and the guys may have a few more, but on here, what's your greatest achievement that you're most proud of?
I don't know. There's some that are really memorable, but I guess if I had to choose, I'll say Pinhoti, just because I kind of got the redemption, and I ended up having a really, really strong race and didn't really have any setbacks. Felt strong. Nutrition was great throughout. So, you had a strong middle, didn't really have much for lows. So it was just one of those things that everything kind of went right. Obviously, I had good memories from doing that scar crossing, but that's not technically a race just because there was the lightning storm when I should have probably not been up there. And I had just met at the time. I was only like 3 weeks into dating my now wife, and she, I told her just meet me at you can meet me at the the Newfoundland Gap or whatever at the 50K, and then she missed me up at Clingman's Dome because she didn't know she had to go down to the trail from the Clingman's Dome from the actual center. So she didn't see me there. And then she goes right to the finish, and she's hanging out with Bobby Holcomb, who she doesn't even really know because he already dropped, right? And so he's down there at the finish, and so she's like, she didn't even get to see me, and she's having to worry because I'm not showing up when I thought I was going to show up because my headlamp was not working in the rain. And so anyways, it's just one of those stories, and that was pretty memorable because of that kind of situation. But I'll say pre-kids it'd probably be the scar crossing, and post while having kids it's probably Pinhoti, just because everything kind of went well. But
do you have any ambition to go back and do the scar again?
I mean, possibly. I know that at the time I think I had close friend or right at the record. And that was like something that I knew that I could have ran a lot faster with the proper gear. And, now that I did it once, knowing where I could have picked up time and that kind of deal. But I just never found myself going back up there. Usually, if I would have been convinced to do it, if there was another good group that was going to go for it, I would have. But most people try to like go up there and snipe it. They don't really tell people they're going to go do it. So I
Yeah.
haven't really been on the invite list for those. And now that I'm getting, I'm not saying I'm too old. At 43, I've still got some good years left. But trying to go for like the course records like I was able to get on some of these races, it's not necessarily my goals anymore. It's just have a really strong race, keep up the good training throughout the year, and have strong races. At the very least, try to be first masters, that kind of deal. There's a lot of young guns out there nowadays. I mean, I get older, but they keep rolling on in. A lot more people out there these days doing ultras.
Yeah, it's definitely became more mainstream. That's definitely for sure. But that's great too.
That's
It's
good.
opening up a lot more races and getting a lot more people involved. Well, I'll kick us off with questions, and then Matt's got the entire list. But the very first question is the same question we ask all of our guests, and that's, why do you run? Like, what keeps you, like, when you're in those down moments and you're going through a race or even just your training, like, why do you do it? Like, why do you run?
Because if I don't, my body feels rough. First off, I'm like, I feel the worst that I've ever felt if I don't run, because your body's repairing itself, right? So if I take a few days off, whether I'm injured or whatnot, my body just feels trash. I don't sleep well. I don't anything. It's almost just like I have to keep doing it, or I'm just going to go through a bad state. And like you were stating earlier, and it's been mentioned, it's great mentally as well. You feel when you start, you might not be in the best spot, but by the time you finish, everything's great. You feel strong. I don't try to run until I don't feel strong anymore. I feel strong mentally, and it's something to look back on during the week that you're in. I kind of look back at times, in my training schedule, kind of just see where I've been. Like I said, I don't try to plan too far out in front at all. I don't do it at all. I kind of, even when I go out for a run, I don't even know how far I'm going to go when I go out the door. Sometimes I just go for feel, and if I have time and 2 hours later my wife wants to go run, I'll go run another time, and it's only been an hour and a half in between. But I can justify that after doing, backyard ultras where I'm running every 20 minutes of rest. So a couple hours is a long time. But yeah, just to answer your question, I just kind of feel like I've always done it. There's only been 7 years where I haven't really been a runner, and most of those years I don't even remember because I was a little kid. So it's just something I've always done. I've always been a runner, and I'm going to run as long as I can. My dad stopped running because of his hips and stuff like that, probably around the age of 50 something, and he became like a pretty good kayaker, open river kayaker, and like lake kayaker and stuff like that. But I haven't really found that I'm getting any issues like knees or hips or anything like that. So some people say that I'll run myself into the ground, but I haven't done that yet. I feel strong.
I can see by your times you're still strong.
He's still fast.
I feel like if you change out your shoes enough, you have a good pair of insoles, you do enough strength and stability, just enough to get by, and whatnot, and try to limit your your bigger injuries by doing all the said stuff, the extra stuff to do it. Then I think you can prolong a pretty long, or a good career in running, especially my age, where you start getting a few more aches and pains here and there. I'm a lot quicker to resolve those than if I was early 30s. I'd let things linger and not really worry about it, thinking they'll just go away. So I'm a lot smarter about things nowadays.
Bob's like, where's my Bosu ball?
Yeah, exactly. I was doing a few reps on it.
I love it. Well, Matt, you want to start us off?
Yes, we got a few questions here. Let's see. What particular distances do you like the most?
I'll say the 50K is my bread and butter, because most of the training that I do, if I'm doing 70, 80 miles a week, I haven't really strayed too far off of I'll say marathon training schedule. Well, I'll say a more aggressive one, more mileage than I typically would have done back in the day. But most of my mileage is on road, depending on the technicality of the course. If it's a trail race, I will definitely go again a fewer longer runs that are on more technical stuff that I have closer to me. But I enjoy the 50K because I can get in, get out. So what I was trying to say was, the marathon training, I've got, good speed, getting in at least one or two good, I'll say speed days, which is just faster, getting in a good long run day. And I can tailor that long run and, or even a few of the slower mile days on trails that are, more like the course that I'm going to be on. So I'm always able to do that kind of deal. But the 50K, I can get in and get out, with a decently fast time and not really have much fear of hitting a wall, so to speak. So I can run at a really strong effort and use more of, I guess more my speed to my advantage. Whereas if I'm going to go farther than 50K, like a 50 mile or 100 mile or 100K, 100 mile or any of the the hourly events, I'm going to start out slower from the get go, and it's just more of a being a little more strategic about it. So I kind of enjoy the 50K. It's more of my bread and butter, like I've said.
We kind of figured that earlier. Me and Matt were talking. We were looking through your ultra sign up. Matt's like, likes 50Ks. I'm like, yep.
So speaking of the 50Ks, what is your fastest 50K?
Well, without having to look at anything, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, it's that Frosty 50K. And that one was around Salem Lake. And I told Ethan about it, and he went there and destroyed my course record there. I did like a 3:08 there, but it's just on this, like, I'll say Jeep wide, completely flat, dirt trail. And I think like like about a mile of it at the end of it is about like some maybe some bike trail, but like it's just, and I think there is a little bit of incline here and there, but nothing that's not runnable. And it's just, there's no technicality at all. So, I'm just going marathon pace and like I said, 3:08, which 3:06 is 6 flat, pace. So that one by far is my fastest. And, but that course obviously was made to go that fast.
Speaking of Ethan, are you and Ethan BFFs?
I wonder who asked that one.
But, hey, since I've moved to Chattanooga, most of my good stories probably involved him from back in the day. But since I've moved to Chattanooga since 2013, now we don't talk all the time. We haven't really run together except for at the many laps at the Mad Ultra. I enjoyed going into it because I don't get to hang out with with those guys, not just Ethan, but even my brother and others. From a running perspective, since I've been in Chattanooga, I don't get up there as often. And usually when I go up there, I'm hanging out our families. That my brother's got 3 kids too, so our kids are just all playing together. I'm not looking to run with everybody. So, but yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of those road 12-person or 6-person relays. Those aren't even going to show up on all the marathons I've done or the ultra sign up or anything like that. But God, we've done multiple of those Blue Ridge relays as a 6-person team, where those are really good stories. And we have the 6-person ultra record there. And we won the whole event outright that year. We beat all the 12-person teams.
Wow.
So, wow. Stories, just with, if I get some friends that want to put together and do something cool, I'm going to go probably do it. So I've got some good stuff like that. So, Ethan and I have a lot of good stories. And when he gets a wild hair and want to do something crazy, and he knows that he needs, another ultra person, I'm usually the first person he calls to get on the team. So we're talking about going back and getting the Masters ultra record at the Blue Ridge Relay. So we got to have this on record, because he's talking about he said that he's got me, Stuart Ellington, and his other buddy Nick End that was on that ultra team. He's got 4 people that are on board to do it, but I don't think he's very motivated to try to finish out the team, or I don't know if he's motivated enough to do it. But like we can get this Masters ultra record pretty easy, and
that'd be pretty awesome.
I'm gonna get pace about doing it. So yeah, there's a few other things that that I do that are just not trail ultras anymore that I'm willing to go do, just so we can get a few records here and there. But
I'm gonna say that's a pretty cool experience too.
Yeah,
so I get that's awesome.
Have you ran any races in the West Coast?
Well, there was I did one of those 12-person relays. I did the Hood to Coast, and the very first year the Knoxville Track Lab went out there.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, it was our fastest time, even though and we always like to gloat about it. Me and this other guy that lives down here, we always joke, even though the Knoxville team has finished a higher place back in future years. We always talk about how we finished the fastest team, and a bunch of those guys that weren't on that team are all like, they usually get mad that we get under their skin. But yeah, that was one that I did out there. Trying to think if there was any other ones. I know I was signed up for a few or for one, and I think it went under, not went under, but the forest fires or something prevented it that year. So they ended up canceling the race and gave me some kind of race credit. I'm like, I can't exactly make it out to California next year or anything like that. I kind of had it scheduled. I usually don't try to schedule things too far away, especially now that I've got kids, that plans don't always work out when you have to get away that long.
So that this was a question, but we've already went over it. But is it true that Tony and Kathy beat you in a 100-mile race?
Hey, look, you can look at it however you do, but sign-up, if you look through Ultra Sign-Up's results, you can see their names above mine.
Well, Tony asked the question. We had to put it on the list. So if you give us a question, we have to ask it.
All right, and here's this. I think this is the last one. Compare the two running communities of Knoxville and Chattanooga. The biggest differences and the comparisons.
It's difficult to compare because a lot's changed since I was there. But my time, and it's all about the phase in life that I was in. I was single most of the time that I was up there, and/or no kids when I was in Knoxville, and I was always running with a group. So I enjoyed that time of life because I could always meet up and run with a lot of the faster guys, and we were always laughing the entire time we're running these insane paces out on these training runs. And whereas now, like down in Chattanooga, there's a great trail community, but I'm always keeping up with how they're doing, but I'm not necessarily always running with them and stuff. I get to see them at a few of the races like Mountain Mist every year and Upchuck 50K and stuff, but it's just totally different experiences. I'll say that I think Chattanooga, if we went head to head against Knoxville, we would take you down in the trail running scene. And I think we need to make that happen at some point. But if you're talking about road running guys, I'd say that Knoxville's got a lot faster road runners than Chattanooga. So those are probably the differences I can think. And I could be way off base on everything I've been saying. So that's my perceptions.
Well, I mean, I think Chattanooga has built a wonderful running community. I mean, the trails and stuff over there, it's just exploded over the last 5-10 years, and I think they've done a really good job of making it very open, and with making trails so accessible. Like you said, I mean, there's 3 large mountains over there with just running trails everywhere, and some great races over there too. I mean, it's a great community.
Yeah, no, and some of, I'll say the old guard, now that Nathan Holland is finally 40 years old, he's another one of the fast guys down here that I'm always I'll say duking it out with, but he's such a nice guy. Like he's not like somebody that it's almost like one year in the Upchuck 50K we're both blazing down the last mile and a half or 2 miles is all like straight downhill road, and like we're going like 6 minute per mile pace because that's you'd be rolling if you didn't. And like he's just like, we're like going, well, who's gonna take off and beat the other person? He's like, well, I've already won this a few times, you can take it. And I'm like, well, no, we're not. Like, if you can run fast, and like we're like doing this while we're going at like these insane speeds, and I feel like I ended up winning, but I feel like he maybe had some more in the tank. So it's just like, it's kind of a roll your eyes thing type deal, but there's a lot of nice guys that are down here, but a lot of fast people that are, and he always beats my tail at Mountain Mist anyway. So the one time that he allowed me to beat him, so to speak. So as fast as I can be, but there's a lot of quality guys. But what I was trying to get at, Nathan and I still for Mountain Mist, we try to get a good team to go down there, and there's a lot of guys when they go down there, we're always including. We always meet beforehand and hang out afterwards, and it's at least a good time to let people know that hey, look, we've got a great group in Chattanooga, and a lot of people, see it happening. It's not like, whatever you're doing by yourself. A lot of the miles, like I said, I'm doing these all by myself miles, but everybody kind of is, keeping up with each other, so to speak, whether it's behind the scenes, watching or whatnot. But, when we kind of work together as a team, everybody's all, great, and they're all nice. So it's pretty cool.
You got to love the communities.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best part about all of this.
For sure.
And even if you don't see them very often, it's when you get there, you just fall right into place.
Well, most of them are all running together. I just don't. Most of them live on Signal or Lookout Mountain, and I'm out in Ottawa, out in the suburbs, and so it's just a little harder, especially with kids. And a lot of them have kids too, but they're all trying to meet at like 5 or 6 in the morning and run out there. But I'm like an hour away from getting to some of their trails that they start at, so I'd have to get up at like 3 or 4 to try to do that. Not going to happen.
Well, Bob, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, it sounds like a typical interview, right? It's like,
What's your weakest point?
Well, man, we truly appreciate you coming on the podcast, and if you don't care when we end the call here, Mitt, just hang on for a second. But we truly appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And man, you're a super talented runner, so we love to see what all you've done and to hear some of these stories. And I mean, kudos to you, man. You have just an extremely long career of running and a successful running. Like you said, you've not really been super injured or anything, and it shows. And I mean, you have, I think me and Matt counted up like 6 or 7 course records overall.
Quite a few.
So, I mean, just thank you and keep doing what you're doing.
No problem. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. I need to get up there for one of you guys' races at some point.
Well, hold out for the Cherokee. That would be a good one for you. We're working on it.
Okay. Up in in the mountains.
Yeah, it's going to be in the Cherokee National Forest. We're doing a 50K,
55K,
yeah,
115K, and
115
future
mile.
plans for 115 miler.
Nice. Well, they used to have the Thunder Rock out there, and everybody's been saying, bring back Thunder Rock. And I know that's just over by the Ocoee and stuff. But,
It does take one of the main trails from that race. We will use one of those.
Good. But yeah, no, I think that was probably when I first moved to Chattanooga. It was a race that I wanted to do, and then they dropped it. And I'm like, crap, that was one that I would have done if I was going to do a 100-miler, because it would have been in my backyard.
Yep.
There's just not many, I'll say, 100-milers close by. I know there's Georgia Jewel that I could go do and stuff, but, we'll see. We'll see if I want to do another one. It'll probably be here in another couple of years. Maybe I'll do one this year. I don't schedule too far in advance. I kind of go off of a whim and where I'm at training wise, and the fact that I've got some good training miles under my belt right now, and I don't even have another race on my schedule right now. So most people already have their whole year planned out.
Yeah.
But I may jump in something last minute. We'll see.
Well, I have no doubt. I'm sure if you're keeping those miles up, you'll see something that catches your eye. What about Johnston Woods?
We'll see. I mean, possibly. I haven't really looked and asked my wife what her weekend schedule is like. She sometimes has to work on the weekends, so it might not work out on that one. I may jump in the stump jump 50K, which is here in another month. They moved it from the fall to March, so that's possible. I haven't committed to it yet. I'm trying to 100% make sure that this little lingering thing below my knee, it doesn't hurt when I'm running, but it's just one of those things when you lift your leg up type deal that uses that muscle. I can feel it, and it's kind of like I never want to go into something even 20% injured type deal.
Yeah.
It might show its face 30 miles in, or not 30, 20 miles in. It's just one of those deals so we'll see. I'll give it another couple weeks. I've got time, but
well, don't worry. We'll be checking out your ultra sign up page, see what you sign up for.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Well, Bob, take care, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.